Hello, guys, and welcome back to Between the Ropes TV. It's a very special episode tonight, and there's a lot to go through, but there is only one place to start, and it's with this man, Jack Hughes. Now, for everyone that has been watching us recently, we've had Jack on, and he's given us some wonderful insight, and he's also been preparing for his own fight. However, that isn't the case anymore. Jack, I'm just going to hand it over to you to explain into your own words the decision you've come to and obviously the reasons behind it.
Yeah, so obviously I've decided to call it a day and not have the last dance for loads of reasons. Some I've probably even touched on previous podcasts before, but I haven't been in love with boxing for a long time now, probably looking about a year or so. Like you train so hard a lot of the times and fights fall through, and like 90% of the time it's never your fault. It's always like, I mean, how many times did I come on here and Ricky Little had pulled out on me? It must have been at least 2 or 3 times in like such a short period. And, that was a big reason for me for falling out of love. Like I kept getting ready for a fight that was just seemed so far away. And, that was a big reason. And then there's other reasons, like the sport isn't as glamorous as you see from the outside. It's a hard sport, and it's quite a brutal sport as well. Like I don't get the luxury of training full time. I have to work around everything I do. I have to sell tickets because I'm at the bottom. And when I do achieve great things, I don't get like the publicity and the lights and the camera that I think I deserve. As I touched on before, people that know me, if you put me in front of a stage or a camera, I will shine. And like I have all the potential to be not in my boxing ability, even though I'm not a bad boxer, but in like my persona and what I like, how I portray myself. Yeah, my charisma. I have the potential to be a superstar. And like, if anyone says no, you don't, you don't know what you're talking about, because I do. I could be like a Dave Allen of the sport, like how he was when he was on his rise. And it's just all these things. Like the ticket sales is probably one of the biggest reasons. Like, and I mean, from what I've heard, especially of late, with like all the rises of like money for everything and the rise of ticket sales and so on, I've heard that a lot of boxers have been struggling lately. And I've heard that actually a lot of boxers on the November shows might actually have to pull out. Not naming obviously any names, but I've heard a lot of stuff. But yeah, just you putting all these things together, I just really fell out of love with boxing, and it was literally only on the weekend I had a spar, and I mean, I was kind of kidding myself anyway. Like I wasn't really training. I was trying to avoid sparring for a long time, and I ended up sparring, and I was meant to do 6 rounds, and I just remember in like the second round or third round, I was just like, why am I even here? I was like, this is just so crap. And like I remember, as I said, I was meant to do 6. It got to the 5th. My coach was like, yeah, one more. Well, not my coach, a trainer who I'm working with called Andy was like, one more. And I just looked at him and I just said, nah, mate, I'm done. I walked out the ring, went downstairs, called my fiance straight away, and I just said, that's it. I'm never ever fighting again. Come upstairs 2 minutes later, just said the same thing to Andy and everyone that was in the gym. I said, lads, I'm not fighting no more. And that was it. That's kind of the end of the story of the punk kid, really.
Jack, I've got to say, one thing that you said, a couple of things that you said that really, really resonate with me. And also, I think people watching us, because there's a side that gets sold to boxing fans of how glamorous it is. I'm talking about when people turn over. Your amateur star that's won X amount of national titles and being at the Olympics, and it's almost like people forget about your small hall fighters, so to speak. When you experience pullouts and when you experience difficulties selling tickets and shows being cancelled because the headliner for whatever reason can't fulfill that, what impact does that have on your family life and your mental health, Jack? Because that these are things out of your control. and like you said, you fit your whole life around that, and then all of a sudden in a second it falls apart. So what impact does that have on your family life? Because that, that's going to have some real impact, isn't it?
Yeah, mate, it's absolutely heartbreaking. Like getting the like what you put your body through. Like for instance, for me, yeah. So I have to lose 13 kilo in an
13.
13 kilo, yeah, in an 8-week period for me when I'm getting ready for a fight, right? So just taking that into consideration, that is a lot of stress on my body. I mean, technically, it is my fault. Like I could be more disciplined, but that this is just how I've done it, right? So I lose 13 kilo. On top of that 13 kilo, I've got to work, right? So I don't have the luxury of really managing how I want to eat and drink and so on, like all the top stars do. So I've got to work around that. Then I've got to go to the gym. That's a 2-hour journey to the gym, a 2-hour journey back on top of however long I'll be working for. Then I've got to sell like 60, 70 tickets on top of that before I even make a penny. And then, if you want to add it into it, like I've got to pay for my license, I've got to pay for my medical, like my eye tests, like all this stuff. So, mate, it's so stressful. And when you're getting ready for it, and as I said, Ricky Little pulled out like 3 times, literally a week before my fight, every single time. After I've been through all of that, it was just, mate, it's just heartbreaking. And like my girlfriend, fiance, actually funded like time for me to take off work. Like she basically paid, like supported me. Like if I needed money, she gave me it because I took all this time off work to get ready for this fight, which really put me in a lot of debt. Well, lucky enough, it's my fiance anyway, but like I owe her a lot of money because of that. So, it's not on, and this is not this is the side that people don't see, and they don't know how hard it is, and they never really understand it unless you live it. But it's not very nice.
It's not knowing. I think just you sort of magnifying that point really hammers home that actually there's another side to boxing, a darker side, particularly when people are saying, boxers should open a lot more about their mental health, about their struggles. I saw a clip by John O'Carroll, and he was really, really going in on the impact it's had on him. And I think the more boxers that open up on that, the better it is for people watching, because it changes our perception of fighters, it changes our perception of the sport, and also to really understand how difficult it is. We can only get from speaking to people like yourself, Jack. So thanks for sharing that with us. But there's positive memories to take away from the sport there, Jack, so yeah, those memories will live on forever, and there's definitely some positives to take away from your career.
Oh yeah, mate, 100%. I've really had quite a glamorous career, mate. Like, especially if you know the whole story. Like, I lost my pro debut, and like everyone said I was never going to make it. Like even some of the top coaches in boxing, who I won't name, but they are quite well known, like on the world stage, told me I shouldn't even step foot in a boxing ring and so on. And when you really think about it, and everything I ever achieved, it kind of always did like get shat on, really. Like I won a challenge belt, and everyone was like, it's not a real belt. Then I headlined York Hall, and when I headlined York Hall, people said, oh, it's the worst show that Steve's ever put on. And then, but it was really in the last year, my career really just went warm and elevated, because I beat the African champion that was 2 weights above me. And then, people started to recognize me. I started to become a bit of a ticket seller. Then I had a show stealing fight with Paul Roberts, the first one that got a draw. And then, in the third time lucky, in my last ever fight, I finally won the Southern Area title, which was a real title. And then on top of that, I also won one fight of the year. So all them people really, at the end of the day, had to eat all their own words.
Yeah, Yeah, and you know, we talk about the impact it's had on your mental health, family life in terms of that negativity. The positivity will give you feelings of elation that, you know, and getting your hand raised as well. You know, you don't get those sort of feelings, particularly in team sports, do you? You know, so massive props to you there, Jack.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah, no, I was just about to say, I mean, I think that's in many ways, as exciting as it was. Obviously, you know, you were going to sort of have one more to sort of say goodbye to the sport and fans. I think it's possibly the best way to go, isn't it? Like you say, for the year, the icing on the cake, you've won the Southern Area title, which is what you set out to do. You've proved the doubters wrong. And to be fair, Jack, as we know, we've got lots of topics to come and we'll talk about them now. But genuinely, mate, thank you for all you've done for us as a channel, because you came on I think we had about 30 subscribers and we did about 10 views a video, and you still gave us the time. And, you know, there were many, many boxers who we approached who wouldn't come. And to be honest, a lot of them had smaller profiles than you did. So genuinely, thank you, and you are welcome on here anytime, mate.
You're welcome,
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So, guys, we'll move on. Obviously, it was a busy weekend of boxing. We all know that.
Just a bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. And we'll start with Deontay Wilder and Robert Helenius. Now, for those that don't know, Wilder got the first round stoppage on Helenius. And if anyone was asking, is that freakish power still there? I suppose the answer is yes. I mean, I'll come to you first, Ray. Ray, what did you think of the fight, the performance?
Well, it wasn't much of a fight, really. And I think we all knew we would get the stoppage. It was just a case of when, not if. But yeah, I liked him down at this weight. He's you know, he wasn't as heavy as what he was for the Fury fights. He's always explosive with that right hand. I mean, that right hand's dangerous. It's quick. And for all Deontay Wilder gets mocked for his lack of technical ability, when you've got that type of power, it doesn't matter what weight class you are, never mind the heavyweight, you always stand half a chance. And it was always going to be, for my opinion, a foregone conclusion, because while that's just so destructive, Helenius didn't have a chance.
Yeah, no, I literally agree. I'll be honest, I thought Helenius would be in there for a few more rounds. I thought it'd be the middle rounds that Wilder would get to him, but you know, he shocked me. I mean, Jack, what were your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, well, I to be honest, I did think he would stop him early. I wasn't really shocked that it was a first round stoppage, and it was just a brutal. To be honest, the punch itself, it didn't even really look like it was a devastating punch, but that just shows, you know, the scary, freaky power that Wilder has. And, you know, like, he could easily make a claim to be probably the hardest hitter of all time, let alone in this era that we're in right now. But yeah, he's just got scary power. Like, as Ray was just saying, like, I think as when it comes to technical ability, I think he's absolutely pants. But do I think anyone would beat him minus Fury? No, I don't. I really don't think they would. Like, so he's probably the number 2 heavyweight in the world. So it's just crazy.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I'll come back at you in reverse order, but obviously the talk is now the WBC will order Wilder versus Ruiz in a final eliminator, which, who knows, that may end up with a 4th Fury fight. But do you guys think he'll take that route? Obviously, we know the PBC try and keep it in-house. Jack, what are your thoughts? Will we see Ruiz, or will we get a curveball and the Usyk fight's even been talked about?
Yeah, I don't know. You know, it's a bit of I don't really think many. Well, actually, no, I think people would actually like to see that fight, because Ruiz is quite a credible name, and Wilder's obviously, with his power, it's always quite entertaining to watch. I think it would be a great fight. I think Ruiz would do well, but I reckon it'd get stopped late. But yeah, it's definitely an option. But I've heard there's so many options that he could be going down. Like you said, Usyk. I also heard Joe Joyce got thrown into the mix. So I guess really it all just comes down to what makes the most sense at the right time. Like, if he gets offered the title shot against Usyk, I'm sure he'll take that. No questions asked over Ruiz. So I guess time will tell, and we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we are getting some comments coming in. Boxing enthusiast, big respect to Jack on his boxing career, wishing you a happy retirement.
Thanks, mate.
And then obviously we've answered that one. I mean, Ray, Do you agree with Jack? Can you see a curveball come in, or do you think we'll get the Ruiz fight in a final eliminator?
I think Jack's got a point. It'll just depend on what the best offer is at the time that gets made to him. Because at the end of the day, if Usyk fight is offered to him and it makes remotely financial sense, that's going to supersede any fight that gets offered to him. He's not going to entertain Fury again, I wouldn't have thought. You know, the Joshua fight, I mean, before the Helenius fight on sort of like Friday, he was talking about Joshua again. Joe Joyce, I've heard that as well being mentioned, but he may look at Joe Joyce and think that's not bringing me anything at this moment in time. Joe Joyce might want to hang on and kind of wait his time. He might not because of his age. But, you know, while there's a problem for anybody, I mean, we all keep saying technically he's not the best. But when you've got that power with that speed as well to throw, because sometimes it's not always the power. When you look at the range, how short it was that he landed on Helenius, it wasn't with those long levers, it wasn't exactly from too long a distance. So he closed the gap quite well, although Helenius was walking onto him. But that speed that he threw the right hand will cause problems for anybody. And Ruiz is quite a quick fighter, but he's quite a short fighter. So he's going to have to telegraph his way on coming in on the inside. And if Deontay Wilder can read that and land that right hand, Ruiz isn't staying there for very long. So I expect him to win that fight. Usyk's a bit more of a complicated problem. He's a bit tricky. But yeah, it's Deontay Wilder's always going to be fascinating. He's always got a puncher's chance in with anybody.
No, definitely. I mean, I was really interested by the weight he came in at. Obviously, he was 23.5 pounds lighter than he was for the Fury trilogy. And as you'd expect, you know, it was visible, wasn't it? The frame was smaller. But I'm going to be honest, I think that's the right weight for him. I mean, Jack, obviously, you've just talked about your own 13 kilo weight loss to get to fighting weight.
I still can't believe that now, 13 kilos.
I know But what are your views on, you know, coming in heavy, coming in lighter? Obviously, it's different as a heavyweight than not actually having to make weight, but there's obviously still an optimal fighting weight. What are your thoughts on this, Phil?
I just think, you know, whatever weight you are comfortable at fighting at is the weight you should fight. And obviously, heavyweights have the luxury of they can weigh whatever. So if you're a faster fighter, then technically you should try and come in at a lower weight. And obviously, Deontay Wilder's quite a skinny heavyweight, isn't he? He was talking for years about making cruiserweight, wasn't he? Winning the heavyweight title and then going down to the cruiserweight. So he's clearly quite a small heavyweight. So being lighter probably works his advantage because he clearly carries incredible power, which we've spoke about. And he is also quite strong as well. So he doesn't really need to be heavier. It wouldn't really make much difference to his style of fighting. So it just all depends. Like, it all depends on you as a person and what you feel more comfortable with. As like that's just really my view on it. If you're comfortable at whatever weight and you're happy to fight it and you feel good in yourself, then come in at whatever weight you want to.
No, definitely. I mean, we're getting some comments here. Stephen Truitt, I'm lurking here in the chat.
Hello, Stephen. How are you doing, my friend?
The boxing community is small, and it's great to have your support tonight, Stephen. We appreciate that. He's followed up with the outside of Fury. Deontay is back. I don't know if Usyk wants that smoke. Deontay's a bona fide killer. Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with you, Stephen. I think, you know, he proved that because as we've all just sat here and said, it didn't even look like a power shot. It just sort of looked like more of a clipping shot. And, you know, that was all she wrote for Helenius. And I saw some bizarre things on social media about Helenius took a dive. Obviously, we knew about them being sparring partners. But that close-up of Helenius' face when he's sort of out on the floor, as much as we all want to see a knockout, I'm going to be honest, I don't actually like seeing those pictures because, you know, they are people's family and, you know, he was clearly not in a very good way at all. So, you know, definitely rubbish in those theories. Boxing enthusiasts back. What do you guys make of Wilder's post-fight breakdown? Do you think the 3 Fury fights changed his mentality of saying he wants a body on his record? I'll come over to Ray on this one. Ray, I mean, what are your thoughts on this?
I don't like fighters saying that. I don't like fighters saying those kind of things, and I wasn't happy when Deontay Wilder said that. I understand some fighters, they try and say a lot of things very close to the skin, close to the bone to sell a fight, but some things can be a little bit too close to the bone. Having said that, though, I think Deontay Wilder's probably thought it is what it is. He probably still thinks Tyson Fury cheated or what have you, but he lost to Tyson Fury, in my opinion, 3 times. Having said that, though, Deontay Wilder, as I'm going to say again, is still a problem for anybody. He's still a problem for anybody in the heavyweight division. So in terms of his mentality changed and shifted, possibly because from watching videos of him preparing for this fight, he wasn't so much focused on improving his boxing ability. It was just about improving the timing and working on the power shots, working on his strengths rather than trying to enhance his weaknesses. So I think it probably has resulted in a different shift, but not just in the mentality of how he's talking about fights, actually in the ring.
Yeah, no, I mean, Jack, have you got anything to add on this topic? I've got a few thoughts myself, but I'll let you go first.
Yeah, to be honest, I've never really been a Wilder fan. I just think he's an idiot. Like, I just think he's a hypocrite. Like, for me, I'm very. I mean, you guys have followed me. I'm very outspoken, and I'm very someone that, you know, like, if I believe something, I'm willing to die for it and fight for it. And it just, when I see things like that, I just look at people and I have to question their, like, integrity and, like, their thing as like, are you actually a real man? Like, you say this stuff, how you want to basically kill someone in a ring, and then when you knock someone flat out cold, you're in an interview crying. Like, it just makes me, I just look at it and I cringe, and I think you're just an idiot. Yeah, that's really all I can say on it.
Yeah, fair point.
No, it's fair. I mean, I agree with Stephen's next comment here. Stephen's put, yeah, he's grown a bit since that comment. People mature, and it's evident when Deontay broke down concern about Robert. I think for me personally, at the time he made those comments, he really lacked a promoter, didn't he? There was a lot of talk about trying to get the Anthony Joshua fight, and I thought it was. I mean, I agree with what you're saying, Jack. It's not nice to hear, and I wouldn't want to hear it. But I think it was just a really misjudged, misguided attempt at self-promotion. You know, to try and steal some headlines, and obviously got the headlines. But I think it's fair to say it definitely won him no fans. It wasn't that sort of press. Everybody was more turned off on him than not. And, you know, particularly in his post-fight conference this weekend, it's not, you know, obviously he's going to be concerned. You know, we all knew about the relationship he got with Robert Helenius, but at the same time, it was it's tough because you can't talk. It is very hypocritical. You can't talk, as much as people grow. You can't be sat there talking about, I want a body on my record, but then he's having a breakdown and talking about brain damage. But these topics do need speaking about. Stephen's also back with, he spoke on behalf of all boxers. That post-fight conference interview was touching. What's on that, Ray?
Well, I mean, he spoke about himself. I don't know if he spoke on behalf of all boxers. The interview was, the post-fight interview was touching. But yeah, it's, I mean, the reason why I'll give an example against that is because Caleb Plant knocked out Anthony Durrell with beautiful left hook, and his celebration, he's digging a grave. He then responds by saying, "Well, I was burying the beef." There's better ways of doing it, and you know, I understand the emotion. You know, I've just been talking about it, the high end elation you would have from winning a fight, or you know, a performance such as a knockout, but then the celebration afterwards. It brings me back to a fight. I'm not too sure whether many people would remember. There was a guy called Serge Bomo. He's a Cameroonian journeyman now. He knocked out one of Dave Caldwell's fighters, who then subsequently had to have part of his skull removed. And he was celebrating in the ring when he knocked the guy out by kneeling over him and sort of like, you know, sort of shaking his body in his face, sort of thing. And Paul Smith was watching it and tweeting it, and tweeting about it, and he just basically called him out on it, and stuff like that. You don't need to be seen in a ring, and then you don't need to be sort of talking about that afterwards. So when he says he speaks on behalf of all boxers, I'm not too sure I can agree. I can see he speaks on behalf of himself, but definitely it struck a chord. And going back to Stephen's earlier point about maturity, yeah, he probably has at this moment in time. But it's not the way to sell a fight, in my opinion.
No, great. I think Mickey C, he talks a lot of sense and usually agrees with me, so hence the sense. But he's coming with, I don't think he would have changed the way he thought or the way he spoke if he hadn't have got smashed to pieces by Fury, got totally humbled. I think that also plays a part. You know, he's had two, whether he thinks Fury cheated or not, he's had two severe stoppage losses where he's been in a bit of a confused state at the end of the fights. And obviously that won't help. Stephen is then back though, in fairness. And I did see about this, to be fair to Deontay. He even went to Robert's room to check on him.
Did
Robert says he's a good dude. Don't get to a place where we judge people by their past transgressions. I'd agree with that myself, Stephen. But at the same time, when you're talking about bodies and, you know, Caleb Plant there, squashing the beef, I don't buy that, you know. Maybe it's because we're British and that's what we do, but, you know, be respectful, go to the corner, celebrate after you know your opponent's safe. I mean, Jack, you're the professional boxer here, or ex now, I should say, sorry. But, you know, if someone gets hurt, that's got to be the right way to handle it, hasn't it?
Oh, yeah, of course. Like, sometimes, like, you see, I'm not talking about the grave digging thing, that's just stupid, but, you know, when he's celebrating after he's just, like, brutally KO'd him, like, sometimes there is, like, sometimes it can be in a level of emotion. You just react straight off of that emotion. And, you know, that happens. And sometimes, like, it could be, like, almost, like, yeah, life-threatening. But at that moment in time, after everything, it's a big emotion. It's a big let-out. So sometimes, like, it's hard to be critical when someone celebrates after, a devastating knockout. Because, as I was just touching on earlier, if you take into everything that I was talking about, sometimes if you get a knockout, you have to sometimes just let that emotion out.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, after a certain amount of time, you see the person still on the floor, it is a bit like, oh, like, kind of bring everything down, make sure he's okay, kind of thing. But yeah, the grave digging thing's obviously just is a bit stupid, isn't it?
It is. Boxing enthusiast back. How do you see Wilder against George Kambosos? For me personally, it's the punch versus the chin, isn't it? So It's a fight I want to see. I mean, I'll come to you first, Jack. One, is it a fight you want to see? And two, how would you see it playing out?
Oh yeah, I would absolutely love to see that fight. Obviously, I speak very highly of Joyce. I think there probably are only two heavyweights that beat him, and I think Fury's one of them, and I think the other one is Deontay Wilder, because Joyce, boxing ability wise, is kind of poor, and he's very, very slow, but he's incredibly big and he's got an amazing engine. And most people, well, everyone he's fought so far can't deal with that. And obviously they hit him with whatever they want and he just keeps coming forward. But I think the only person that's going to hit him and put him out is going to be Deontay Wilder. And Joyce isn't hard to hit. We've seen it. He gets hit constantly throughout, like, you know, however long it goes, he just gets hit constantly. And yeah, I think he will just end up walking into a big right hand and get put out. And it could really happen at any stage. It could happen like in the first round. It could happen in the mid rounds or the rounds. But it is a fight I definitely would love to see.
Ray, do you want to see this fight?
Yeah. Like I was saying before, any fight with Deontay Wilder, regardless of what you think of him, is going to be exciting because of that power. I think Joe Joyce, because he's got such a decent jab, will probably look to offset Deontay Wilder. But Deontay Wilder's proven that he can punch going backwards. You know, he's not just a come forward puncher. He's so awkward. He can punch from any angle, anyway. He's so unorthodox. It's just weird. It's not natural. It's not something that's taught. It's just so unorthodox. But just like what Jack's saying, I think Joe Joyce's defense is so poor. He almost walks forward, and Yas said it before. I've said it about some fighters in the past. He blocks punches with his face. You can't do that against Deontay Wilder. And with heavyweight boxing, I don't really care too much about how good your chin is. It will get exposed in the heavyweight boxing. I mean, we're talking about 16, 17, 18 stone lads. And when they hit you clean, you'll go. So I think it's only a matter of time before Joyce gets stopped in that fight.
No, I mean, again, no arguments from me. I agree with you. We've had some great comments. Stephen's back with Joyce's boxing press may give Deontay issues, but he'll snooze. He's then going to say he will. He just elaborated and be going night. Mickey, I like this one to be off. Mickey, I don't think Joyce would flinch. She's got a head like a concrete boulder. So I like that one. And to be fair, I mean, personally, I do think Wilder would get to him eventually. But I mean, yeah, it is. I don't. Certainly in recent memory, I don't think we've seen a chin quite like Joe Joyce.
Heavyweight. Yeah,
it's definitely an intriguing fight for me. Probably one of my. It's up there on my sort of most wanted list. It's certainly in the heavyweight division of fights that are out there for me at the moment. So I mean, we'll move on because there was another big fight, but we've all sort of criticised it a little bit in Devin Haney versus George Kambosos 2. Obviously, as we all know, back in June, Devin Haney comfortably beat George Kambosos to win the undisputed lightweight titles. And this was the contracted rematch. And we were very vocal about this, weren't we, Ray? That, it was the rematch that realistically was there in a contract. Nobody actually wanted to see it. I mean, I'll come to you first, Jack. Did you want to see it? Obviously, we both said last week we didn't. Was this something that interested you or not?
Well, I just love George Kambosos, so I'd watch him in any fight because I just think he's got an entertaining style. I mean, considering that, in my opinion, the lightweight division is the best division in the world right now, it would have been. I think everyone would have preferred to see a different fight, but I was still willing to watch it. I mean, I didn't watch it, but you get what I'm saying. But yeah, and obviously Haney's just, I mean, pure class. He completely outpointed him again, and in Kambosos' hometown. Haney's probably in the top 3 or 2 lightweights right now, and if there's a fight I want to see, and probably is the only man that can beat him, and in my opinion is the king of boxing, I just want to see him fight Lomachenko because I want to see Lomachenko get another world title shot again. I just think he's. Do you know what? It's mad because I almost want to say that he's the greatest of all time, but you kind of can't say it because he's only had a certain amount of fights. But when you consider everything he's done, joint fastest man to win a world title, the fastest man to be a 2-weight world champion, and the fastest man to be a 3-weight world champion, and what he made, like 9, I don't know how many it was, but it was something ridiculous, like 4 or 9 world champions quit just because, not even because they was taking a beating, just because they just did not have a clue what to do against him. And I mean, fair play to Teofimo beat him, but I generally think if a rematch ever happened, Lomachenko was going to beat him quite comfortably. I just think he had an off night. I mean, there was talk about the shoulder injury, but at the same time, my thoughts on that is, if you take the fight, you take the fight, and you took the fight thinking that you were going to beat him with a shoulder injury, so you can't really be blaming a shoulder injury for the loss. But I do think he would beat him. I do think he's the best. I want to say he's the best of all time, but I just kind of went through that. But that's the fight I want to see now.
No, I mean, I'd agree. I mean, Stephen's back with he'll starch Lomachenko. Ray, I mean, 2 things really. One, Lomachenko, the fight you want to see, and, how do you see it going?
Lomachenko and Haney, is that the fight you know about? Yeah. Lomachenko and Haney, of course. I don't think Haney will fight again at 135. That's me being honest. He looked dead on the scales. I'm surprised he put in a way, I'm still surprised he put the performance that he did, but I can't see him making that weight again. And if he did, it would probably be for the Loma fight, and that would be it. I think he's probably looking at the mistake that Teo made and probably thinking, I'm not going to boil down again. But having said that, I will love that fight. I really rate Lomachenko. Everyone knows I really rate. My style of boxing is, having watched Lomachenko from 2 Olympic cycles, for me, anyone I think who wants to learn boxing should learn from Lomachenko because it's an art form. I'm from the school that thinks boxing is about hitting somebody and not being hit in return, and he does that to perfection. The difference when he fought Lopez, same as when he fought Salido, he was fighting a much bigger, physically stronger guy who all they did was physically impose their will. And Lomachenko, he struggled for that for like 8 rounds, and by the time he works them out, it's probably too late in the fight. Had he had a rematch against Lopez, it probably would have went a different way. So I would have liked to see that again. But I think Lomachenko's angles, don't forget, Lomachenko's really effective short to mid-range. And he's really effective. His right hand hook. We saw what problems Jorge Linares gave Devin Haney on the inside. He wobbled him in that 9th round. In fact, he did wobble him. So Devin Haney still got bits to improve on for me. I don't think he's as terrific as what some people stateside are making out, but he is a very talented fighter. But he needs to compensate for that lack of power, because when you're moving up, that's one of the things I think as a fighter you need to make yourself effective if you're moving up weight. Size and power and speed. He's got the speed. He's got a great jab. He's got great ring IQ, but he doesn't have that power. So I'm just a little bit skeptical of how his success is going to translate once he steps up in weight.
Yeah, no, I mean, Ray, me and you have clashed over Devin Haney a few times. I'm quite a big fan of his. I do agree he lacks the power, and as Stephen had put in earlier, and also you guys have alluded to, I think he needs to move up. The pictures of him at the weigh-in in June and the weigh-in now, and let's be fair, there's been reports that he struggled to make 135 for going back the last 18 months or more. I think he needs to move up. I mean, I'd agree with Mickey C. Loma is something else, and as you said there, Ray, yourself, the angles and boxing IQ, it is just sensational. He's all the world almost. Yeah. So, I wouldn't blame him for sticking at 135 and taking the Lomachenko fight, because that's where legacy comes in. And let's not forget, in fairness to Devin Haney, he's still only 23. He's the youngest ever undisputed world champion. He got a bit of stick, didn't he, when he had just the WBC belt, about how he was like an internet champion because he got given it on an email and all the rest of it. But let's not forget, he chased the WBC route. He chased Lomachenko. I'm not saying it was Lomachenko ducking Devin Haney, but I do think that, Lomachenko's team, his promotional outfit, clearly didn't want that fight, because they were the ones that pushed the WBC into inventing this whole franchise situation. So there's a bit of history there. There's a bit of needle there. It's definite. That's the fight for me at 135. I mean, I hope he moves up, because I think he needs to. But there's also, he said himself that he, not just Lomachenko, but Tank, Ryan Garcia, he wants those fights at 135, and he thinks that's where the big fights are for him. I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Ray?
Well, I think Garcia's on about staying at 140. I think he'll probably come down for 135 if he gets the Gervonta Davis fight. I'm led to believe that fight is probably close to happening, to be honest. So I think those two are locked in with each other. Teo's at 140. There's a Lomachenko fight there, 135. I don't know, but there's some good guys at 140 as well. One of Gary Russell's brothers is there, and he's a serious talent. And if Josh Taylor hangs around, I know there's a Catwalk fight that's pretty close to getting sorted out as well. So there's good fights, whichever one he picks. And I think when you're undisputed, you're at the stage where you can pick and choose your fights. So for me, Devin Haney, like I said, he's got a lot of skills, got a lot of talent. I'm really impressed with his ring IQ. There's one or two things, if I were him, I would say, that leaves me with question marks if he is going to go to 140. But if he can healthily do 135, then again, the Lomachenko one is then one that sticks out for me at that weight class, lightweight.
Wow, I'm just seeing some comments coming. Stephen, I'm loving your comments tonight, mate. So thank you for that. So firstly, he's got Devin's world class. He's putting a masterclass against Kambosos. Been very critical on Devin, but the dude is the business. He's no joke. He's followed it up with, I'll be willing to bet the whole house that he'll outclass Loma. I'm deadly serious. See, now, I'm a big fan of Devin Haney. I really am. But to say he'd outclass Lomachenko, I love the balls on it, Stephen, but I don't know if I can back it. I mean, Ray, Jack, you guys both sound like you're possibly leaning towards Lomachenko would win the fight. Am I right there? Or I'll go with you first, Jack.
Yeah, I think he would. I don't think anyone beats Lomo in a boxing match. I think that's the only thing that Haney's not a big powerhouse. He's not necessarily a strong fighter. I think obviously his main attributes are the fact that he's a world-class fighter. And I think, well, as I literally just said, I would like to kind of make the claim that Lomo is the greatest of all time, but I can't say it just because of the lack of fights and so on and so forth. But every time I watch, Lomo's the only boxer I've ever watched. And when I watch him, I'm just like, how is this man doing these things? I've never been like that with anyone. Like, he's just, when you watch Lomo, it's just something like to behold. Like, he's just something else. So yeah, I think Lomo beats him. I think he beats him. I would say he beats him comfortably.
No, I mean, I would love Haney to win it. I'll be honest, I'm a fan, but yeah, I can't sort of argue. I think I'd be getting splinters up my arse on a prediction for that one. I wouldn't know which way it would go. I mean, Ray, are you going with Stephen or are you going with Jack?
No, I'm gonna have to go with Jack on this one. As much as I like Devin Haney, but I just think Lomachenko wins that fight. I think to beat Lomachenko, like I was saying, you've got to physically impose your will on him. People talk about Lomachenko's only 5'6", 5'7". He's quite small for the weight. The last two weight classes he's been in, super featherweight and lightweight, but he's absolutely brilliant at short and mid-range boxing. He's not so much effective on the outside, but it's just the way he gets inside, does his work, lets his combinations go, hurts his opponents, he's back out of range again. And I feel as though with Devin Haney's best weapon is his jab. And time again, you saw in the Nakatani fight with Lomachenko how he negates that jab, and he doesn't do the same thing. You watch boxers sometimes, and it's almost like, okay, he's a southpaw, he's coming in, he's going to keep his lead foot on the outside, and he's just going to step to his right, just past that jab. He's going to let his right hook go. But Lomachenko doesn't always do that. He does different things. He uses different angles, which is why, as Jack was saying, his opponents are really confused. They're going back to the corner. They don't know what's hitting. Yeah, and then the straight left comes. So I think with Devin Haney, it's going to be like figuring out one of those Rubik's cubes, and I just can't see Devin Haney being able to do that, and being able to keep deter Lomachenko from coming forward, because Lomachenko's not really like a typical southpaw counter puncher in that respect. He can come forward as well, and when he comes forward, he's really, really effective and dangerous. So I think Lomachenko wins that fight.
Yeah, Mickey C agrees. Loma isn't getting outclassed by Haney for me. I sit and watch Loma and my eyes are glued to the screen.
I would agree.
Yeah, you can't argue it, to be fair. Stephen wants a bet. As I said, Stephen, I'm getting splinters, so I'm not taking that one myself. If the guys want to, I'm sure they can get in touch with you. Just a comment we had a little bit ago off Davey, and I want to come back to it, because it's very relevant. As much as the speculation and the talk naturally stays with the champion and, what's Haney going to do next, what about Kambosos? Jack, you said yourself he's a very entertaining fighter. And just to remind you, obviously, Ray, you went against me in the first fight and you thought Kambosos would beat him, didn't you? Wrong. Yeah. He didn't quite get that job done. I was right. Just for a change, I was right. But where does he go now? Because let's not take anything away from George Kambosos. He's still a quality operator. He still beat Teofimo Lopez. And, he came over here, beat Lee Selby. So he's got some good wins, and he's shown he's world-class himself, isn't he, Jack?
Oh, 100% he's world-class. It's at the same time, like, I think there's always going to be fights out there for him, because he's got to be in the top 3 or 4 in the division. So there's always going to be fights out there for him. But it's just whether because he is the kind of man that will take any fight at any time and in someone's yard as well. Just think really it's about picking the right fight for him now. He's coming off 2 losses, two of the biggest losses in his well, there's only losses, but they're 2 massive losses on a record. So he needs to pick the right fight, really. Like, but knowing him, he'd probably just end up jumping in there with like Lomo, like, I'll just take the Lomo fight in wherever he wants it, and then ended up having another loss on the record. And it's like, where do you go from here? But I think he'll probably just go and he'll fight someone like half decent, maybe once or twice, get 2 wins under his belt, and then start pushing for a world title again. But with him, you just never know, because he, as I said, he will take any fight anywhere.
No, definitely. I mean, here's a name, and I'll put it to you, Ray. Maxi Hughes, IBO champion.
I was just thinking that.
I'm hoping that's great minds think alike then. But I'm just thinking, particularly after the Kid Galahad win, he's done enough for a big fight. George Kambosos, obviously, he needs a comeback fight, but he needs a good comeback fight, doesn't he? The way Kambosos fights, and as Jack's just said there, how he operates, I don't think I'd be more worried about him getting in the ring with a no mark, because he just seems like quite a passionate guy, and I don't think he'd be up for it. So, I mean, would you be interested in a Maxi Hughes fight for George Kambosos, Ray?
Yeah, I was thinking Maxi Hughes would be ideal for him. I was actually thinking Maxi Hughes, or what else I was thinking was Richard Comey. But then I was thinking he's moved up to 140 and he might not want to come back down. But those were the 2 sort of names I was thinking while you were speaking to Jack there. It's a big fight for Maxi Hughes. It would probably co-headline a card somewhere in the UK. He's been over these shows before, and he did a job on Lee Selby. And I really like him. And I remember people saying that he can't punch, and it's pretty hard, to be fair to him. He's got quick hands. And he's a warrior. He's got great punch output. He's pretty good coming forward as well. And he's quite an intelligent fighter. He just got beat off a far superior boxer on 2 occasions. But it was no shame in losing to Devin Haney. I still think he can. He's more than a match for many of the other lightweights in what is a red hot division. But the Maxi Hughes fight will be a great fight. A good clash of styles.
I totally agree. Joel Phillips back. Great to have you on, Joel. How do you feel about Kambosos versus Tank? Now, also, we know that the Tank and Ryan Garcia fight sounds close. Thoughts on that fight, Jack? Kambosos versus Tank? How do you think that one will play out?
No, I think that's a brilliant fight that I think anyone would want to watch. Do you know what? I know a lot of people would disagree with this, but for me, the verdict's still kind of out on Tank. And don't get me wrong, he's clearly very good. But in my opinion, I think his best win is Leo Santa Cruz. And in my opinion, Leo Santa Cruz is just a blown up featherweight. His best year at Super Bantam, really. And then he won a world title at Feather. I don't know if he won one at Super Feather. And then he just went up to lightweight and got sparked out. And if you take that win away, what his best win is probably Liam Walsh, which isn't, don't get me wrong, it's not a bad win, but it's not a great win or a world-class win to ever go off at anyone and say, yeah, this guy is world-class. And I only ever really rate people on who they've beaten, because anyone can say anyone's world-class, just beating up nobodies. So, the verdict on Tank for me is still out, but when you talk about Kambosos, he beat the man who beat the man. So he was the man at one point. So I love him. So I want to say him, but I just don't really know with Tank. Like, is he world class yet? I mean, he hasn't really shown me anything to say that he is, but everyone does rave about him. But it is a great fight, though, and one that I think, as I said, anyone would want to watch.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, Jack. I think that's, again, a really appealing fight. And I'd agree as well, actually. I presume Stephen here is clearly a fan of Tank. If Kambosos couldn't do anything with Devin, what do you think Tank's going to do to him? I'll be honest, Stephen, I'll answer that one if the boys don't mind. As Jack's just said, Tank's biggest wins against the blown-up featherweight, so he's got to... if he takes if he gets the Garcia fight and it gets bottomed out and sorted, then, yeah, great, that'll be a fight. But I'm not overly impressed with Tank so far, personally, myself. But I mean, we'll move on, guys. Just we'll touch briefly on obviously the women's card. We did do a live reaction to it, but Jack, I just wanted to get your thoughts as we sort of start to wind down here. Obviously, Shields Marshall, a historical night, historical card. I was wrong. I was hoping and thinking Marshall would get a late stoppage. Don't smile, Ray. This isn't the time for one of your smiles.
Guess who was right there?
Yas did a brilliant job of getting that one right. Ray, honestly, Jack, you weren't with us last week, but Ray just jumped on Yas's bandwagon, was bang out of order, to be fair. No, Ray did get that one right over me. But yeah, obviously, even like my mom and dad watched it, who neither are into boxing. It really did have that historical big card feel. What were your thoughts on the fight, Jack? And did it play it how you thought it would?
No, I thought Marshall would stop her myself as well, mid to late. Firstly, Clarissa Shields is class, absolutely, like very, very class. But no, I just don't know. From what I've seen of Marshall, when I watched that fight, I don't know if it was just me, but I thought she was absolutely appalling. And I don't want to take anything away from Clarissa Shields because what she's done is absolutely incredible. But it was almost like I was just watching someone who's having their first like boxing match, because when she was jabbing, like her feet were crossing over like this. She was just plodding along. She weren't cutting off. There was no ring IQ whatsoever. She weren't cutting off the ring. She wasn't using her reach. Her body language was just shocking. Like the way she was moving, it was just almost like I don't even know. And
did you give her any rounds, Jack?
I gave her one. Yeah, it was 1 round. Yeah, and then
get this man on more often. Josh, get this man on more often.
No.
And then when she had her on the ropes, she was just smothering her own work, and like it's hard to believe that she's had 12 fights and knocked out 10 people, because the way she was throwing punches, she weren't even planting her feet and like letting shots go properly. It was all just arm shots, and I was so shocked. I was more shocked on how bad Marshall was than how good Shields was. Like, yeah, I don't know. Like, it was a very weird watch for me, but it was a great fight. Having said all of that.
See, I'm gonna have to be honest, and I know what Ray's getting at there. Our WhatsApp chat was popping off on Saturday night while that fight was playing out. And I'm going to be honest. What did I have it, Ray? I think I did have it 5-4 with a draw, a 10-10 round.
Yeah, you did.
Well, I'm going to be honest. As I said to you earlier, I started watching the full Haney Kambosos fight on my dinner break today at work. I did re-watch Shields and Marshall, and I'm standing by. I definitely gave Marshall 3 rounds. I thought it was the second half of the fight. First 4 rounds, I totally agree with everything Jack's just said. She was definitely, I think she was trying to overcomplicate things, and she wasn't planting her feet at all, as Jack's just said, and she was tripping over herself effectively, trying to constantly change the angles, and she needed to just calm down. And I do think, with the cornerman she's got in Peter Fury, I think if we do see a rematch, which I still think is the biggest fight for both, I do think those adjustments would be made. I'm not saying she'd win because Clarissa Shields, in fairness, was just out of this world, but I do think Marshall would probably give a better account of herself. Not that she should be ashamed of her performance, but I do think it would be a closer run thing. Mickey's back in it. It went the way I thought it was. Shields was a different level, but Shields has no power. Marshall was very sloppy and disappointing. She looked unsteady on her feet with a movement, 1 or 2 rounds. Right, Mickey, we're going to ignore the 1 there, mate. We're going to say 2. I thought 4. Meet me in the middle. We gave her 3 rounds. That's it. We're all agreed. Well, right, we'll knock it on the head there. Stephen's back. Clarissa just showed out. She was absolutely awesome. No, she was very good. Mickey's back. I think round 6 she landed and out through Shields. That was a close round towards the end, a push. Yeah, I do think it was a fight of 2 halves. I think, as Shields set an unbelievable pace, and the ferocity in her work, certainly in the first half, was ridiculous. It was like playing a game on your Xbox, wasn't it? And as she slowed, I do think that sort of allowed Marshall a few more openings and a little bit more success. Chris Welch. Chris, glad to have you in. I'm loving the Kid Galahad story. There's more. I'm sure there's more to come on that. Marshall just realised Shields is in a different postcode, and again, the fight did reek of that. I mean, we'll just wrap up here. But last question. I'll come to you first, Jack. Obviously, we know Clarissa Shields is going back to do some MMA stuff with the PFL next. But in terms of boxing, what do you want to see her do next? Does she defend it? Do we get the rematch? Does she go and try and become undisputed in another weight class? What's your thoughts?
In my personal opinion, I just really don't think there's anything left for her to do in boxing now. She's had 13 fights now, won them all. Only ever lost one fight as an amateur, Olympic gold medalist. Beat the person that beat her as an amateur. Unified 3 divisions. I mean, really, what more can you do? I mean, yeah, you can say, oh, you can unify a 4th division. Is there any point? She is got. I mean, I don't even think you can argue it now. Like, she is the greatest woman of all time, and that kind of pains me to say that because I don't really like her, but she is. And what else can you do? Like, who would you really say, like, oh yeah, I'd really like to see that fight now with Clarissa Shields. That would be a good fight, because I just can't really think of anyone that would really challenge her. So I'd think she should just go off to the UFC. And I mean, she's doing all right at that. I think she's like 3-0 in the UFC now as well. Well, not UFC, but MMA. Yeah. So why don't you just go over there now?
I think she
lost, hasn't she?
Yeah, she lost the last fight. I think she was winning. Shit. She did, yeah. I mean, if anyone actually knows, correct me, but I'm sure
she got put to the ground. She got put to the ground. And
she was butchering. She was butchering opponent on her feet, as you would probably expect. And then she got took down and got choked out. But for me, that actually only sort of adds to the greatness. You know, she's gone over to MMA from boxing, which, let's be fair, 2 incredibly different disciplines.
Yeah.
She still had success, and I'm positive. I remember the woman's face was absolutely butchered, and she just managed to get her to the floor and obviously get that win. Boxing enthusiasts here, rematch in America or back in the UK? Ray, if it's going to be a rematch, do you want to see it, and where do you think?
I'll see it, fair enough, but Clarissa will win it even wider. I can't see Marshall, and I said it before. I can't see Marshall. The only talk about Marshall that made it in an interesting fight was Marshall's power. If Marshall never had that sort of power that everyone says she has, this fight wouldn't have been. People would have said it was a mismatch. You know, if you look back at Clarissa Shields' career, you know, I think she had a more difficult fight with Christina Hammer from Germany. So for me, when you get to that stage where you're taking these type of fights, it's just money. She needs a payday. When you get into the sense where you're undisputed, in 2 weight categories, and you've been undisputed 3 times, twice in one weight class, you just need 7, 8-figure paydays. She's not going to get an 8-figure payday because she's female, and that's just being realistic. They're not going to give the women that amount of money, but she should get a 7-figure payday. If Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor did, then Clarissa Shields should. So that's what she should be looking for now. She should just be looking for whether it's exhibitions, going into the UFC, going into Bellator, whatever gives her 7 figures, because that's what she deserves now. Because there's no other female boxer out there that's gonna even trouble her in the ring, to be honest. So you know, the rematch wouldn't interest me, but for her, she just needs to focus on securing that legacy financially.
But that, I mean, I don't disagree with you at all on the financial side of things, but that's surely on Ben Shalom and, you know, the promoter's box there. And, you know, you could argue, yeah, they did the fans a massive favour by not putting that card on pay-per-view, because I think it would have still done well. As I said, I know a lot of people who don't watch boxing did tune into it. But they have probably robbed the fighters of a monster payday there, if you think about it. I mean, I'm not in the boxing business, so I wouldn't like to hazard a guess. But I'd guess when you hear of other pay-per-view sales, I'd guess it would have still done 400,000 or 500,000 buys, which obviously would translate to a massive payday for both boxers. So I mean, and that's the only reason. I'm going to be honest. I agree. I mean, Mickey's put there could be in my back garden, still the same outcome. But for me, the rematch is probably her biggest payday. You know, if it goes stateside, she's not the biggest ticket seller. That's the only reason she's actually over here.
Yeah.
Same with Michaela Mayer. As much as they've tried to build these women's boxing is just the hub in the UK at the minute. So for me, that's the only reason to take that Marshall rematch, because I think it would just become the biggest payday that she can possibly get. I mean, Chris Welch will just finish up. I'm delighted the women's event did fantastic on Saturday as well. I'm now going to be giving my opinions on women's and men's from now on. Enjoyed it. That's great, Chris. And guys, check out Chris's YouTube channel. I reckon she would beat Akoli as well.
He loves Lawrence Akoli, don't you, Mickey? See?
Well, I was going to say, we gave Lawrence Akoli a bit of stick a few weeks back, didn't we? I mean, Jack, I'm not sure what your thoughts are on Lawrence Akoli, but Mickey's not a fan. I'm going to be honest, neither are me or Ray. I mean, what are your thoughts on him?
As a boxer?
Give us both, if you like.
Well, I don't really like him that much as a person. Well, not that I don't like him. I just don't find him a very entertaining person. But as a boxer, as a cruiserweight, I don't think anyone beats him. I think he's the Deontay Wilder of the cruiserweight division. Technically not great. Technically probably way better than Deontay Wilder, but still technically not great. And just has ferocious power. And on top of his ferocious power, he's incredibly strong for the weight. I've not seen anyone like even remotely push him back. And yeah, I just think he smothers people and then just knocks them out late on or mid to late rounds. I don't think anyone in the cruiserweight division beats him. Heavyweight's a different story, but yeah, cruiserweight, I don't see anyone beating him.
There you go. Just as you said that about heavyweight, Mickey's coming. Still haven't had my refund for my free fight I watched. Couldn't box eggs at heavyweight if he moves up. Yeah, well, we'll see. We've got to be due some Lawrence Akoli fight news. Obviously, as we all know, there's talk now Catterall Taylor 2 has been sort of ironed out for February the 4th. And there's a lot of talk about Matchroom announcing their remainder of the year this week. So there'll be lots more content to come, guys. We'll finish there. Jack, thanks ever so much for joining us. Well done on your career, mate. And thank you for everything you've done for us, genuinely.
You're welcome, man. Thank you for always having me on.
No, I'm sure you'll be back on in the very near future, mate. But yeah, thanks for joining us. And thanks everyone in the comment section.